This time. Also, those of you that are online, you can give 3 ways, and the information is in the description. Amen. Come at this time.
ain't no ordinary worship. This ain't no ordinary song. The God I serve is greater than the ordinary. So I'ma give him all I have in this moment. Come on, help me sing. This ain't no ordinary worship. This ain't no ordinary song. The God I serve is greater than the ordinary. So I'ma give him all I have in this moment. Let me tell a story about a woman with an issue. She had it 12 long years, didn't know what to do. She heard about a man coming through her town. She fell to her knees and crawled on the ground. She said, if I can only touch but the hem of his garment, I'ma give him all I have in this moment. This ain't no ordinary worship. This ain't no ordinary song. Is greater than the ordinary. So I'ma give him all I have in this moment. Let me tell a story about a man from Galilee. He healed the lame, caused the blind to see. This man, he was betrayed and crucified for you and me. This man only wanted to make us free. But in 3 days, he rose with all power. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In 3 days, he rose with all power. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 3 days, he rose with all power. So I'ma give him all I got. I'ma give him all I got. I'ma give him all I got in this moment. This ain't no ordinary worship. This ain't no ordinary song. The God I serve is greater than the ordinary. So I'ma give him all I have in this moment.
No ordinary worship. We serve a God who lives in the impossible give it up for the band. Let's give it up for our worship leaders. Let's give it up for Christ. Faces, those of you who are watching via YouTube, Facebook, Zoom, we do thank you for tuning in. We invite you to like, follow, subscribe, share, tag some people, take the challenge and share today's service with 7 of your contacts. Help someone go from blessings to greater blessings on this afternoon. We have a phenomenal speaker. This is someone that I've gotten to know over the past 2 years. Those of you who have been here a while know that on March 16th, I started at LA Southwest College. I was only on campus for 4 days before I had to work remotely, and transition to any new job can be difficult, especially in the midst of a pandemic. But I thank God for his favor. And I thank God that, he blessed me with a powerhouse team of colleagues and chairs that worked with me in the liberal arts division there. And our speaker, Dr. Maisha Jones, who is the chair of behavioral and social sciences, is one of those chairs. And I'm excited. I invited her to speak because of her story of triumph. As a leader, as a manager, I try to get to know the people whom I work with. And I tell you, as people begin to share and disclose about themselves, one of the things I can say about Dr. Jones's story is that people who are given excuses for why they can't push forward, why they can't be great, why they can't go on and make something of themselves, she's getting ready to dissolve and crush all of those. Because there are people that have barriers, and they'll allow the barriers to really destroy their confidence and their hope. But that was not Dr. Jones. And so I'm not going to tell her story. I'm going to let her tell her story. But I'm going to ask that you rest on your feet and give a greater blessings welcome to Dr. Maisha Jones.
Thank God for the First Lady. Everyone here, my mom, who's accompanying me as well. I'm excited for this opportunity to share because I'm not teaching. Today, I'm not teaching, okay? So please, if you feel that, if you sense that, say, Dr. Jones, not tonight. I'm also not preaching today. I haven't been ordained, indoctrinated. I haven't received that letter of science and theology, so I'm not preaching. I came here to share. And in my sharing, I hope that I can be a bit of inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and uplift us all, because I think we all really need just a little push, a little nudge, a little, I just wrote a thing that said, baby, it'll be okay. Sometimes we just want to know it's going to be okay. So for me today is also a process of reflecting on some of who I am, who I've been, where I've been, and where I'm going. So I'm also going to not teach, but in my sharing, I'm hoping that I leave you with some nuggets that you can take along with you that'll be helpful in your journey, because that journey, as we know, for 91 years, it never ends. It never ends. So the first thing I'm going to leave you with is, I can do anything. I cannot do everything. Do I need to repeat that for somebody? Because this man also, he brings something to the job, the workplace, the space of drive and ambition that resonates with me. Because at the tender age of 5, I think I told my mom, I want to live my own life. And I meant that at 5. I was driven, I was ambitious, and I wanted to do things my way. My way wasn't always the right way. But I can do anything. Anything I put my mind to, I believe I can do. And I've learned over time that that's with God's grace, his strength, his courage, right? The resources, the tools. He has equipped us all with some special talent, gift, and ability. And for some of us, it takes a lifetime to really tap into what that is. Right? So I'm going to get to how I've kind of lucked up on or been blessed to figure that part out. I cannot do everything. That part is also important. Because I believe in the introduction that I read, it said something about me being a single parent. And as a single mother, it's been extremely challenging and difficult to be responsible for what feels like everything. And again, here's where we have to lean into our source to know where everything comes from. So when I know I'm getting to that place where I cannot do it, that's where I call on God. I also want to bring to you this: I am best friends with growth and success. That's an affirmation. It's actually a gift someone gave me of a candle that they made specially for me that says, I am best friends with growth and success. So when we think about our circle, our network, our family, I give this to you later on. Just type in, Google in Oprah and T.D. Jakes, Turtles and Giraffes. It's about 4 minutes of a snippet, and it'll help you decipher who needs to be in that close circle of friends. Because some of the people we surround ourselves with will take us so far from our purpose and our destiny. If we allow them, if we give them the power to do such. Because the art of worship can sometimes lead us to places and people that are not worthy of our praise. And that's hard because we all want to belong and be accepted. And fitting in sometimes makes us worship wrong people, places, and things. Something else, and I know I'm kind of going a few places, and I hope as I see some nods that you're following me, because I will incorporate the story after you get some of these nuggets. Both and versus either or. Both and versus either or. In this lifetime, we are oftentimes faced with being placed in a box where we feel restrained, restricted, constrained. And again, as we want to fit into society's definition, that doesn't always align with what God has for us. And it's really important that you all embrace that sometimes, oftentimes, probably more than not, it's going to be a both and, not always the either or, because either or makes you have to choose sometimes from what's important, what's destined, and what's in God's grace and glory for your life. And then these words like but and just. But. Sorry, but you're about to make an excuse and justify why you did somebody wrong or why you said that thing. And I challenge you to eliminate that word from your vocabulary, or at least be very critical of when you're using the word but, because a lot of times what comes after it is an excuse. And then that word just is a way of diminishing whatever comes after it. Oh, that little man she just got, or that little old car she just got, or that little old job she just, And so it diminishes it a little bit. So think about that too when we use that word just. Perfectionism. Trying to be good all the time. And being good is really light. Being perfect is not always attainable. And I am learning that perfectionism is really a trauma response to some of the racial discrimination that we face, where we have to perform twice as good to get half as much of the recognition. And I'm challenging us all to understand and distinguish between a standard of excellence and a standard of perfection. Because what happens in life, and a part of my story, is that we hinder ourselves. We do not foster progress when we're waiting for things to be perfect. We don't take those steps because we doubt ourselves, because things aren't perfect. There's also this distinction between standards versus expectations. And I had to learn this. I am learning this still with very intimate relationships with the men in my life. Almost all of them. My son, my adult son, I am learning. He's an adult. That's a whole story that we don't have time for today. Because young black men today, praise God for you. It's hard out here because the world doesn't appreciate, value, respect, honor them. And so my son has come to this point of being the cute little guy to like public enemy number one, like this. And that's a difficult thing because as parents, we have to establish some boundaries of how we treat these adult kids in our life. Because they're always our children, but they're no longer kids. A little bit of that story. Standards versus expectations. Standard. My house needs to be clean. You have to hold down gainful employment. Hygiene is important, particularly in the age of COVID. So hygiene, sanitation, and disinfection. And for me, education, and that's a whole story. Education, critical. These are standards, okay? Standards for me that are so significant that I wrote them out in a contract for him to be able to continue to live with me. Standard at this point, because if he doesn't abide by these standards, guess what? We've got to think of other options. Do you know how difficult that is? Can you imagine how difficult that is, knowing that if he's not in my home, where he might be? Expectation has a little emotion tied to it, so that if he doesn't meet it, then it becomes really contentious. And now we're fighting and arguing, and so the standard is now in this contract, because now I can remove a little of that. It's hard, because you don't want to have a transactional relationship with your kid, or anyone in your family for that matter. These times call for high standards. Maybe also high expectations. That's how my mother raised me. She reared me with high standards and expectations. And yes, they led to very contentious disagreements. And we've come full circle to be best friends today. My son isn't there. My son and I are not there. There's still a lot of hostility and contention between us because he is not meeting the standard. What I still hold on to is an expectation. The holding on is what kills my peace. And that's something else I want to share. Okay, I'll share that in a minute. Standards versus expectations in my son. So I have to let go. And that's something I have to trust God and have faith and confidence in God about, is that in my letting go, I'm letting God. That I know he's a child of God, and I know our prayers are answered, and I know that he's not going to fall far from the fold. When we plant trees, they don't grow overnight. And I know it's good seed and good soil. And so I am waiting, because I know it's a phase, it's a stage, and I have to pray that God, I can't wait to that day. I'm waiting with excitement for the day I laugh at. Remember you was going through that little thing you was going through, and I'm waiting for that, folks. And I hope you all pray for me and my son and my mom in that as well. I'm trusting that it's a process. And life is largely processes that we have to learn and unlearn. I got to say that a little louder, because the unlearning, and this sometimes we need to do, not just here in the house of the Lord, also, remember both and, not either or, and in therapy, and with a mentor. Because sometimes our family and our friends give that biased, sometimes even unsolicited advice that isn't necessarily in our best interest. And they are now providing more culturally responsive therapeutic sessions, even if it's in a group where you might go and say, "Ooh, thank God I'm not going through those things." Right? But also, here's something I can learn from how they're navigating those things. So therapy has been critical for me because everyone hasn't taken it up yet. And I can also share with them, as I share here, what I take up in therapy, because what it does is also hold a mirror to help us unpack how we're thinking, how we're behaving, and see different ways of doing and being. So I'm learning and unlearning. That's really important, unlearning, right? that part about those habits and those behaviors that no longer serve us. Probably never really did. But most of us, how many of you took a class in parenting before you had kids? That wasn't court sponsored, right? So it doesn't really come with a guidebook, and everybody's so different. We all have our unique and dynamic personalities. And so I parented my son like my mom parented me, but guess what? Not so effective. Okay. Low-hanging fruit. I'm shifting here. Low-hanging fruit. What's the low-hanging fruit in your life? I don't mean this in a bad way. A lot of times we think of low-hanging fruit as something bad. As I have accomplished, ascended, been uplifted, and encouraged, I'm understanding that for me it's good to tackle the low-hanging fruit on my to-do list. To-do list could be chores. So low-hanging fruit would be, what's the easiest, least energy, right? Something I could do in multitask, maybe, right? And that's another story, multitasking. We think we multitasking. We probably not doing something real well. We need to reject those narratives of the multitasking because it means something's not getting all of our focus, okay? Low-hanging fruit, chores, debt. One of the reasons I'm here today is because, I had about 13 payday loans at one time. Do you all know about payday loans? That means I was going to about 6 different places on my payday. In this very vicious cycle of taking it out, paying it back, taking it out, paying it back, and then online making sure the other half were being paid. Low-hanging fruit. I was in a cycle of debt that I wasn't going to be able to easily get out of, and it was incarcerating me, crippling, paralyzing, keeping me unfree from doing things I might have wanted to do. And so when I think about even something like debt, I began paying the lowest balance off. Off, not a payment, off. Because what I also started seeing was my credit score going up. And that gave me a sense of reward and fulfillment that, if I keep it up. I stopped, and my mom knows this even more. All these people calling you. I'm not ignoring them anymore. I'm going to make an arrangement with them. I'm going to let them know, not this month, maybe 3 months from now, but I'm not ignoring you. And if you would, don't put anything on my record because I am going to get to it. Low-hanging fruit, chores and debt. That's another way I became free. And free is something that we all strive for all of our life. Debt-free, heartbreak-free. A lot of freedoms, free from addictions and abuses. Freedom. I heard in Bible study this week, Pastor Carter say, if we are faithful, we don't have to politic. I had to write that down because what happened in my spirit was I found out I could be me, genuinely and authentically me at my workplace, and that's why I've been there over 20 years. That story, I didn't graduate high school. I have a GED. I had a kid, and a lot of people say end up. Y'all hear people say I ended up getting pregnant? Getting pregnant is pretty intentional. Laying down and, doing the things that get you pregnant is usually. So I don't want to take for granted. Some people really end up pregnant by way of some other forced or manipulative ways, but we don't just end up in those situations. I had a kid, I was young. I knew I was smart. Smart and wise are two totally different things. That drive, that ambition had me doing things with people that I shouldn't have been doing. So that's another thing about determination. I was determined to do what I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it, not caring about the consequences. And that can lead us down really wrong paths. My child was a blessing, and I knew I needed to do something for him. And that's how I landed very intentionally at LA Southwest College. I knew I loved the classroom. I loved to learn. And so I embarked upon an AA degree pursuit. And actually, it didn't start there. I just knew I wanted to go to school and get to the university. And I really wanted to be a probation officer. That's what I thought. That's what I wanted. While at Southwest, while pursuing this degree, I've earned a job, student worker with the police department. So I had the experience, I had the knowledge, I had the background. I was able to graduate and transfer. I did the AA for her because she was let down that I didn't graduate from high school. So the AA degree was for Mom. In the midst of my first year transfer at the university, I was incarcerated. Ended up, right? I ended up in jail. No, I did something with some people that had some consequences. And I had all those books, criminal justice books, in my backpack in the car that they searched. And they were like, oh, they wanted to charge me with all kind of conspiracies and all kinds of things because they thought I was premeditating all the... Whew. That could have took me all the way off my square. But this was one of the times in my life where it was redirection. Because at this point, I was also going through backgrounds with the probation department. And this came up in my background. So I couldn't do that job. And I thought I had wasted all this time. And thank God I was able, with the help of God, with his prayers, to redirect. And so I knew I could still, thank you, work in law enforcement. It might have to take a little while for that to fall off, drop off. But working at Southwest College gave me insight into all kinds of possibilities in education. And so what I thought was, this is a place people can come before they begin making those types of decisions. And so if I could work here as a prevention, I don't have to work in probation as an intervention. It's not really an either or. I could do both and. I was real about my background, and I knew that could be a barrier. And I knew education didn't have those types of barriers. So I continued my education. I switched from criminal justice to sociology. Sociology is so broad. It's about everything in life. And I was able, after graduating, to get a job in the financial aid office. Now, the financial aid office, nobody grows up wanting to be a financial aid assistant or technician. Nobody even knows about that job until they step foot on campus, right? But it was like working at the bank on a college campus. I wasn't confined by four walls. I got to meet new people all the time. I got to, like, push buttons and thousands of dollars. That was a really rewarding job. And it wasn't just a job. It was a career because I had great benefits, and I worked around great people, and there were growth opportunities. However, I still didn't know how far I could or wanted to go. And I kept going to school. And I'm going to be honest, I went back because I didn't want to start paying my loans back. And I knew as long as you stayed in school, you could defer your loan payments. But here's how God just always steps in. Upon getting my master's degree in sociology, and it's back a little, that circle, that network, who you surround yourself with, there was somebody at that college, first day of class, that said, hey, I remembered you. Did you finish your degree? In what subject? Would you want to teach? And she looked at her roster and she said, I have a class for you. And that dean at that time, which is the position your pastor fills right now, she gave me my first teaching opportunity. She said she'd even extended a week to give me a week to prepare. So that gave me time to go back to that circle of people, mentors who always believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, who always thought highly of me. They gave me all I needed in terms of curriculum to be able to teach that class. So I did financial aid in the day. I did the teaching at night. And that was beautiful. It was beautiful. And as would have it, the relationship, I talked about men and my relationships with men. I've always desired intimacy. Something else I'm going to leave you with. Please go listen if you can. I know it's going to be hard for some of you. Kendrick Lamar just dropped an album. And he is talking about some stuff. Oh, my gosh. One of the songs is called Daddy Issues. And if you can just try and Google the lyrics, if you can get past the music and whatnot. Daddy issues, the abandonment, the lack of love, the confidence, what that does to some of us. And then we go chasing for something, for a void that'll never be filled. Not in that way. We have to look to our source to fill those voids. I got into a relationship. It was beautiful. The man was living a double life. Long story short, that propelled me to my next height. Perfectionism, trauma response. I'm going to go do my thing. Some of us are so accomplished in this part of our lives because those other parts aren't in a particular order. That's my truth. And that's the truth of a couple of women that I know. So sometimes when you look at us, please don't be jealous or envy, because something that you have, we haven't been able to yet accomplish. And being able to balance is really, really, really difficult for some of us. Financial aid, I'm still working there. I'm teaching part-time. I write a position for a promotion, a supervisor. I'm qualified. I'm in the president's ear. Y'all remember the circle, the network. You have to have these ties. It's almost guaranteed. And then there's a personnel commission rule that allows somebody to transfer into this position I just created, pretty much for myself, pretty much endorsed by the president. I didn't get it. And everybody thought I was going to be sad and mad. And that was the first time that God's grace really, that I noticed, I observed, I witnessed God's grace, because what I did was say, this is not rejection. This is redirection, and that God has something so much better for me if my attitude, my disposition, and my tone is right. And sure enough, folks, getting admitted into the doctorate program and also being hired for the full-time teaching position is what was right around that corner. And so I'm so happy I kept that tone, that disposition, and continued to praise God in all of that, because it's led me to where I am now. I'm going to go back to my notes here, because it's really important as we think about I can do anything but I can't do everything, to learn when it's appropriate to be vulnerable and ask and seek support. Again, being careful and distinguishing who those folks are that can provide the appropriate support for us. That is really important. To be vulnerable is to also acknowledge those places where we have deficits, where we are weak, where we could stand to improve, and to have someone there to help us through that. And that's where I am very thankful, grateful, and appreciative that Dean Carter, your pastor, is always providing us with development opportunities, how we can grow, pushing us. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not ready. Oftentimes I can't. I have too much on my plate, you know. And every now and then the devil will get in my ear and say, well, you could do that because you're a man. I don't say that to you, but that's what I think. And I also think of people in relationship. When you have that life partner, that spouse that gives you that support, it makes that easier for you. So First Lady, I give it to you for being his backbone and supporting him through what he does for us. have a few more things, and these are kind of my prayers that I'm sharing with you all that have gotten me through. Something's coming up for me quite a bit lately, and it's a part of my current story, and it has to do with letting go and boundaries. Sometimes we need to pray for the strength to walk away from people and places that no longer serve us. And we need to pray for the courage to never look back, because the devil will tempt us to go back to places and spaces that will take us from our glory. We also need to pray for the wisdom to know that we deserve better, that we're worthy and that we're valuable, and that we bring life to spaces we occupy. We have to pray for the grace to never settle. Never settle. Never settle. And this is hard because the pickings are slim out here. But anybody who's, y'all pray for me, please. The pickings seem very slim. And here's where I also have to pray for humility to accept what is. Which doesn't mean I'm settling. It's learning how to be content. And this is something me and my mom struggle about. Like, contentment and happiness, to me, those are two totally different things. I've always looked at contentment as a place of settling. I'm learning to be a lady in waiting and to wait excitingly for what God has for me, what he's preparing for me, what he's designing for me. And I know it's so extra special that it's taken a little while longer. And that's where I also pray for confidence to know that better is on the way. It's coming. But I got to talk a little bit about this acceptance and this release, letting go. Acceptance. Most people in life are just looking for a safe place to be themselves. I'm quoting Cleo Wade here. Heart Talk. This is something, Pastor, I want to gift your congregation with. In addition, remember the both and, not the either or. In addition to reading your Bible, I highly encourage you to get through, and I'm going to give you all this Heart Talk, Poetic Wisdom for a Better Life, okay? And if you're not an avid reader, you only have a moment or two, I mean, some of the pages have like 5 words, okay? And they're very uplifting, motivating, and encouraging, but this was about feeling safe, creating sacred spaces for our relationships where we trust, and some of us have a real problematic time with trusting people because we've been let down, disappointed so many times. Loving, caring, kindness, and support, judgment-free. That's a key word there too, being judgment-free. But this thing about letting go, why are we holding on so tightly to things, people, places that don't serve us well? And this is a critical place I'm in, a crossroads, maybe even at work. For 20 or more years, this place has been my home. These people have been my family. And there's a climate, if not a culture, that seems to be tearing us apart. And I'd like to blame it on this pandemic and some of the racial reckoning that's happening in the world, where we are losing our minds, our sanity. We are stretched so ever thin. And this is why I say we can do anything, but not everything. We have to have a support system. We have to find people who are like-minded and forward-thinking, who have common values, if not the same, and share some things in common where we can optimize our gifts and work in unity. But sometimes we have to learn how to loosen our grip and detach for our sanity. Sometimes it's mentally, sometimes it's emotionally, sometimes it is physically. But letting go is a part of life. It's not always easy. And if we learn how to do it, that's how we find peace. So I've let go. I've let go of some of my emotional ties to outcomes at work, with my son, sometimes in interactions with my mom even. I've let go of that because I find peace. I find peace. And right now, peace is probably the most important thing in my life. To live in peace, to have some harmony and balance. Not really easy things. I said I was going to share. I want to inspire, encourage, and motivate. While I'm talking, I'm hoping you all process some things and reflected on some things, people, places, encounters that you are having, because we will continue to have them. And I ask that you reflect on how you show up and how you present, what you want out of it. Remember the standard versus the expectation? Letting go of the emotional attachment to the outcome, while still, remember both and, I still have a standard, and I want it to go a certain way, and I'll be okay if it doesn't happen the way I intended, because I know God's plan. His timing, his purpose for my life is greater than anything I could ever imagine. So I have to let go of some of my habits, my behaviors, some of my lifestyle choices, some of the people who I've been holding on to, who continue to let me down, disappoint, and frustrate me. Loving them from a really great distance and still loving them. Nothing is too good to be true, people. I reject that narrative. Y'all hear that all the time. Oh, that's too good to be true. Nothing is too good to be true. Not under God. Nothing is too wonderful to happen. Nothing. But we convince ourselves because we black, because we women, because we disabled, because we have this health issue, because we don't have the education, because we don't have a position or the title, we convince ourselves that it's not for me. I think I heard y'all singing before. God has something specially designed for you. Somebody specially designed for you. A village. And nothing is too good to not last. We hear that all the time. All good things may come to an end. Not in my world. Good things can last forever. And part of that has to do with the role we play in ensuring that in our relationship and connection to God, and in fellowship with others, with our worship, our praise. Now, that art of worship, I'm creative, I'm innovative. I could do that in the bathtub, in the shower. I can do that on the way to work. I could do that in the middle of a meeting. I can do it on my knees or on top of a mountain. It's an art. The reason they call it art largely is because of all the different ways we can approach it. And I think it's really important that we continue to have a heart of praise, of worship, of gratitude, of appreciation for everything God has bestowed upon us, and that we have breath. Breathing for me is an act of worship. Being on my feet is an act of worship. Being here with this microphone in my hand is an act of worship. And I pray that something I said today has resonated in some way with you, that you could take a piece of this with you, and that you will remember it amongst your family, your friends, in this service. Thank you for the invite. Thank you so much.